So while the NFL draft is a really fun period of time before the draft, during a draft, one of the best times is after the draft because you really get to see all your difference makers in place and pretty much, most of the roster you can pretty much pencil in at this point. And most of the guys that will be making the big contributions in the upcoming year are on the roster already. So the Jaguars had the number one pick, went with Trayvon Walker, and they wound up coming in with 12 picks and leaving with 7 different picks. And actually, I think this is actually eight picks. So with this video, actually, sorry, 7 picks. So with this video, I want to go over some of the things that I liked, but I also want to share some things that I really didn't like. But I do want to start with the positives, and that's that when we look around, the Jaguars drafted Trayvon Walker number one. And it was a bad year to have number one pick. I mean, a bunch of different. There was no consensus number one guy. I mean, teams had different guys at number one. Some people might have had Trayvon Walker number one. Some people might have had them as low as 6, 7, or 8. The different guys. I mean, whether it was Evan Neal at one, Kayvon Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson, Ike Ekwonu, just a lot of people. So that's why the Jaguars wanted to move back. But when there's not a huge consensus like that, it's hard for teams to really move up. And when there's not a quarterback, of course. So, with Trayvon Walker, you get a guy with huge upside. I know I said I would have gone with Aiden Hutchinson just because I kind of look at the floor and feel like Aiden Hutchinson is much more bust proof. At the same time, the Jaguars need to get blue chip players, guys that are top 3 or top 5 at their position, in order to really start advancing and to really be a good team. And Aiden Hutchinson probably doesn't have the ceiling of a top 5 player. On the other hand, Trayvon Walker probably does have the attributes to, maybe get to that point. So the Jaguars went Trayvon Walker number one, and we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. It's not a good pick. It's not a bad pick. Time will tell what he is. Is he, a great player, or is he another Dante Fowler Jr., where you have a bunch of fun, traits and everything, but it just doesn't pan out on the field. So we'll have to continue to monitor that. Now, the Jaguars did come away with 2 first-round picks. The other pick was Devin Lloyd. The Jaguars moved from number 33 overall, which was the first pick of the second round, up six spots to pick number 27. Gave up a 4th rounder and a 6th rounder in the process. And I really like Devin Lloyd. I think he is going to be a real cog on the defense, a true leader. I think he's going to be the guy that winds up being on the field 100% of the time. He can do a lot of stuff, whether it be rush the passer, be back in coverage, also really, really good at run pursuit and getting off of blocks. So this is a very, very good pick, and the Jaguars fill a huge hole, with bringing in Devin Lloyd. Next up, Luke Fortner out of Kentucky. The Jaguars needed offensive line help. They got a pretty good center in there, and I think that one's going to be good. Now, the next one was Chad Muma from Wyoming, linebacker. I'll get more into this one later, but big-time value pick. He was very, very good, and now the Jaguars, it feels like, linebacker is a huge strength on the team. You definitely feel like that. They turn it from a big weakness to a big strength. Next up was running back Snoop Connor. He's more of a James Robinson type running back when it comes to, a little bit shorter, but more of a downhill runner. Probably has a little more explosiveness than what's it called, James Robinson. But he's in there. We don't know, like at the year started today. If game 1 was today of the NFL season, Snoop Connor would be our starting running back because Etienne and James Robinson are both rehabbing stuff, and hopefully they both progress well, because it's not a broken ankle, it's not an ACL, it's an Achilles and a Lisfranc, which can be kind of touchy injuries. Next up, we grabbed a pair of cornerbacks to end it with Gregory Jr. and cornerback Montaric Brown, a.k.a. Buster Brown, kind of a cool name. So that's kind of rounds it all out. So some of the good, like high upside players, I mean, both of our first round picks, I mean, if they hit their ceilings, they could be literally the best players at their position. So that's really good. And also the defense should be really, really good. The Jaguars gave a lot of love to the defense. I was expecting more of an offensive draft, but, once again, we invest heavily in defense. And, you look around this defense, man, Jaguars upgraded a lot of spots from fully Fatu Kasi to Arden Key to Trayvon Walker. You go back to the linebacker core, you pretty much overturn 100% of that with Luakin, with Devin Lloyd, with Chad Muma. You look at the defensive backfield, bringing guys like Darius Williams and also, Tyson Campbell and Andre Cisco going into their second years. This defense should be twice as good this year, and hopefully as well with some good coaching as well. Now, some of the bad. When I look at this draft, look, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm not like overwhelmed. I'm not like, oh my God, what an amazing draft. I'm so excited. We like nailed it. But I'm also not saying that we did like a terrible job. I'm just kind of on it. Because, first of all, what I've been saying ever since we locked up Trevor Lawrence, I said, look, we need to make sure that Trevor Lawrence is set up to succeed. And I don't know if he is right now, especially from a playmaker standpoint. The Jaguars right now are relying on guys like Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram, guys with high upside, but we're asking them to do things that they have never done in their NFL careers. We're putting a lot of pressure on those guys to do those things, and I'm not sure if they can really are able to capitalize. And now I don't know what I would have done different. Maybe it just would have been hard because look, I mean, it like Devin Lloyd. Obviously, I would have loved Christian Watson and stuff like that, but Devin Lloyd is a really good linebacker, so I'm not going to complain about that pick. And then you get more to the third round, and you don't want to just grab a receiver to grab a receiver. You want it to fit the value, and maybe it just didn't work out. But when I look around at other teams in the NFL, I mean, ever since the Jets drafted Zach Wilson, they brought in Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore. This last draft, the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett. The very next round, they draft George Pickens. You just look around the NFL, and it seems like a lot of young quarterbacks have really good weapons, and I can't say that about Trevor Lawrence. So it stinks. Maybe it just didn't work out that way to where it would have been advantageous to grab a receiver wherever. It's just, when I look at things, other teams were able to kind of make it work, but the Jaguars were not. So that's one thing. And also the Jaguars' number one pick it's a huge risk. I mean, we took a monumental risk here. And, this is a guy that he wasn't even an All-American or an All-Conference SEC player. He didn't load up the stat sheet. I know the whole things where it's like, oh, he's just fitting the Georgia scheme. They played him all over the place. He needs to focus on one position. But that was the same exact thing we were saying about Dante Fowler Jr. I mean, the Jaguars took literally the least accomplished number one pick of all time. No, the least accomplished number one pick in NFL history the Jaguars took. So hopefully, I mean, it's up to the coaching staff. I know, look, in the past, we haven't been able to develop players well. But, we had Doug Peterson. We have a brand new coaching staff in here. What they do has nothing to do with the coaches in the past. But they're going to have to coach these guys up. So number one pick, huge risk. Let's hope it works out. I'm sitting here rooting for the best. Also, Chad Muma, I did not understand this pick. I mean, you get Aluakin in free agency, you get Devin Lloyd in free agency or in the draft. So where does Chad Muma play? When the press conference was going on, they were talking special teams. But I'm like, look, I didn't draft the guy in the third round to get less than 30% of defensive snaps. I mean, I'm not doing that. I understand value, and maybe he was just like a top 20 player sitting in the third round. It's just, man, I didn't. I just don't know where we're gonna play him. Of course, my next one is that Mike Caldwell. We gave Mike Caldwell a lot of help. Mike Caldwell is the Jaguars defensive coordinator, but we don't know a lot about Mike Caldwell. This guy could be a really, really good defensive coordinator, or he could be a bum. And the Jaguars are doing more to help out Mike Caldwell than they are to help out Trevor Lawrence, it feels like. But Mike Caldwell, if he's anything like Todd Bowles, he runs that 3-4 scheme. And look, you need really good linebackers in that scheme. They had Devin White, Shaq Barrett. There's another guy out there, but why can't I think of the name? Whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But what Todd Bowles does in this defense a lot, he blitzes, and you need really good linebackers to not only blitz, but also play in coverage when they send guys blitzing. And if you don't have good linebackers, you're going to get really, really exposed. So the Jaguars should be really set up to, be able to compete on that side of the ball. And the last thing is this, the emphasis on offense. There's been very little emphasis on that. Of this draft, you go in with 14 draft picks and you come away with 2 offensive players. I know we ended up with it looks like 7 draft picks, but still, you only get 2 offensive players. I don't know. That's a little bit disappointing. But overall, I mean, that's just how I feel about the draft. It's not set in stone or anything. Look, I'm not sitting here slamming the Jaguars draft. Oh my God, we did terrible. No chance. We're awful. Look, I'm going to give it a chance. I laid out some of the things that I liked, but also I think I have more concerns than likes. And, I'm going to be upset if week 10 is here and we have the same stuff as last year where no one's catching the ball, no one's getting separation. But at the same time, I do think that last year with Urban Meyer meddling around the offense and just a terrible offensive scheme, I think the Jaguars' offense alone, with just the addition of Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence going into his second year, I think that's going to do the Jaguars' offense a lot better than it has in the past. So I'm in wait-and-see mode. We'll continue to monitor, of course, this Jaguars draft. And heck, I was someone who liked the 2020 NFL draft with C.J. Henderson, Kayvon Chaisson, Laviska Shenault, and that turned out to be terrible. So let's hope that this one turns into a really good class. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Am I alone in this with being a little bit skeptical, or do you guys kind of see where I'm coming from? So with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Go Jags. You guys watched the whole video. Really appreciate that. You guys can subscribe to the channel for the best source of Jaguars news on the YouTube platform. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at UCF_Jaguar. And you can become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month for exclusive channel content. Thank you guys, and go Jags.